All right, everyone. I would like to officially welcome you again to the Brave, Bold, Beyond virtual summit put on by Speaking Your Brand. The Speaking Your Brand is so amazing because it's been their mission ever since Carol started the podcast and the business so many years ago, to really uplift women's voices. And I know for her, it's so important that we have a diversity in voices. And I think that we are all a little tired of seeing the same voices out there all the time. Am I right? I feel I'm right. I'm going to pretend that I heard you. I feel that I can feel your energy talking back to me, so I would love to hear it. I also feel that the speakers can hear you clapping, even though they can't hear you clapping. You give us virtual claps in the chat, of course, but feel free to get the energy out there. We are feeling it, even though we cannot see you. We feel your energy. And so we thank you for that, because you being here is what makes this an amazing event. Yes, it's the great talks, it's the great coaches, it's, all of the support of Carol and Diane. But really, without you, we wouldn't have this. So we're so excited you're here. Thank you for taking the time, because I know we got a lot going on these days, but we are so glad that you are here. So now I have the pleasure of introducing one of my favorite people. She is proof that wonderful things come in small packages. And she's a personal brand strategist and speaking coach at Speaking Your Brand. She probably needs no introduction, but honestly, her whole career has been about uplifting people and helping them clarify and get their voice out there. So she's one of the most supportive, intelligent, and funny people I know, but like I said, in a very teeny package. She's my favorite little teeny, and I would like to welcome the amazing Diane Diaz.
Hi, Amber.
Hi, Diane.
I'm laughing as you're saying teeny, because thinking about all my tiny problems as I set things up today.
I know you and I commiserate on opposite ends since I'm 5'11". Like I feel like all furniture is made for tiny people, and you feel the opposite. So
yes,
I think we understand each other's pain.
Absolutely. Yes. You can picture me getting clothes out of my washing machine with my feet sticking out.
That one's going to get me through all the slow times. Every time I throw my back out bending over, I'm going to think of you doing that. I love it. Yeah. But the other thing people might not know is Diane is also my dance partner. She loves a good virtual, like by yourself in your room. So throughout the day, I know she's going to join me in dance, but thank you again, Diane. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you, Amber. All right. Are we ready to get started, everybody? I hope that's a yes. I can hear it out there in the chat. I can't see the chat right now, but I know you're excited. So I wanted to kick things off and share a little bit with you about why I'm excited to be here today. First, let me ask you a question. Have you ever read something and it really just hit you over the head like a ton of bricks? Well, this happened to me recently. Carol had asked me to put together some opening remarks, and I was sort of thinking, what do I want to say? And I was kind of waiting for inspiration to come, because I kind of like to have inspiration before I work on these sorts of things. And I was killing time one afternoon, and I thought, well, let me pick up a book that I haven't read in a while and kind of pick up where I left off. And you should know I'm reading 10 books at any given time. I don't know why I do that, but I'm always at some point in the process of about 10 books. Some on my Kindle, some as audiobooks, some as hard copy books. And I keep my hard copy books on my coffee table. So I was sitting on my sofa, and I picked up a book that was actually given to me by Carol Cox. And I opened it up to where I left off. And this book is right here. And it's by Gloria Steinem. And it's called The Truth Will Set You Free. But first, it will piss you off. Well, I love that. That's my kind of book. Now, the subtitle, I should tell you, Thoughts on Life, Love, and Rebellion. Well, feminism with a little dose of rebellion, I can stand that. That's nice. So totally my cup of tea. So I opened up this book to where I left off about halfway through, and I read this little collection of quotes, and then I read one quote that really hit me. So let me read it to you. It says, "No wonder studies show that women's intellectual self-esteem tends to go down with every year of higher education, we've been studying our own absence. Let me let that sink in for a minute. And let me repeat that. We've been studying our own absence. Well, I want to tell you that quote hit me right between the eyes. When I read that, it was like mind blown. Thank you, Gloria Steinem. Suddenly, everything that I had experienced in my educational career, my professional career, my life, all of it, suddenly made sense to me. After high school, I got my bachelor's degree in marketing. And then I worked for about 10 years. I went back to school and I got my MBA. So by all accounts, I'm considered someone who is highly educated. I'm the first one in my family to get an advanced degree. And after graduate school, I worked for about 10 years in the land development industry as a marketing director. So here I am, highly educated, got all the degrees, doing all the career things you're supposed to do, checking all the boxes. But why did I constantly have this sort of nagging self-esteem issue, sort of this imposter syndrome? And I know many of you have probably dealt with that. Why was I feeling like a fraud? And I often felt like someone would come and knock on my door and say, "We're on to you, Diane. We know you don't know what you're doing." I felt that way a lot. Why did I have that lack of confidence? Why was I afraid to ask for a promotion or ask for a raise? What was that about? Well, after reading this quote in Gloria Steinem's book, I got it. Throughout all of my education and all of my career, I saw very few women in leadership positions, very few women in positions of power and decision making. Think about the history that we're taught. Just going back to elementary school, grade school, college, all of it. Think about the history we're taught. It's largely absent of women. And even if there are women, it's just a few. The companies that we studied when I was in undergraduate and graduate school, mostly led by men. Most of the textbooks, and yes, we used physical textbooks back then, those were mostly written by men. Most of my professors, the speakers that would come and speak to us when I was in college, and frankly, the politicians that I learned about and that I voted for, men, 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 all men. Now, there were some women, if I'm being honest, there were, but they were few and far between. And even in roles that I could aspire to, there was a lot of competition because there were very few roles and frankly, really no path to get there. Now, I know that I'm not alone in this. I know this relates to all of us. All of us have been studying our own absence. And it's not true just for women. Think about if you're Black, brown, Asian, LGBTQ, or any other group, we've all been studying our own absence. That lack of confidence and that imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it, is caused by that absence, and it is widespread. Now, I hear about this a lot from so many women that I know, friends, colleagues, acquaintances. It is clear that from a young age, when you don't see someone who looks like you in positions of power, in positions of leadership, it impacts what you think about yourself and your own abilities. When we see women in positions of power, we believe we can be in those positions too. It's when we see women using their voices to change the narrative, when we see them in positions of power, leadership roles, leading companies, leading our country, that's when we have more confidence to go after what we want, change the narrative, and serve as role models for other generations of women and younger women coming up behind us. It's this visibility that leads us to this confidence to share a bigger message with the world. Now, it wasn't until years later in my career, surrounded by more and more women who were taking on leadership roles, speaking up in meetings, taking on more challenging positions and projects, and starting their own businesses, that I began to feel a spark in myself that I too could do those things. Working with Speaking Your Brand clients for a few years now and seeing their growth and the growth that they've experienced as they've honed their thought leadership message and put that out into the world has inspired me too. seeing speakers on our virtual stage at the summit last year, and I know the ones I'm going to see on the stage this year, and working with the speakers this year, and also the women in our Thought Leader Academy, shows me and makes it clear how important women's voices are to building confidence in all women. Hearing these women's voices helps me to find my voice, and then it makes my confidence in myself and my abilities much stronger. The Brave, Bold, Beyond Summit and the work that we do at Speaking Your Brand and in our Thought Leader Academy have been game changers, not just for me, but for the women in those groups and the women that we work with. And I know that it's because I can see that women aren't absent. So I hope that today, while you watch the women on the stage speaking and sharing their stories, that you will see yourself in these women and that you'll see that you too could have a bigger voice, a bigger message, and a bigger impact. I hope that you'll be called to be more present and to not be absent. Let's make it our mission. Let's all of us make it our mission to model thought leadership, model having a bigger voice and a bigger message and taking up more space so that we can model this for women from all walks of life, all genders, all age groups, careers, industries, and more. Let's not be absent. Let's be brave, bold, beyond. Thank you. Okay, and now, speaking of brave, bold, and beyond, I would like to welcome to the stage our leader and the founder of Speaking Your Brand and the person who gave me this book, Carol Cox. Come on up, Carol.
Hi, Diane. So nice to see you today on our summit day.
It's so great to be here.
That was fantastic, Diane. And you know what's so funny is that we both have been working on our speeches this week, and we have not been talking about our content with each other, yet they are so well aligned, which I guess should not be that surprising. This is what we live and breathe and work every single day.
Yes, absolutely. And as we know, you and I kind of share a brain, so.
We do. I know we'll boxer each other and we'll literally be thinking the same thing at the same time. Well, thank you so much for that powerful speech, and we will see you much more throughout the day.
Yes. Bye.
Bye. Before I kick things off with my opening remarks, I do want to say some thank yous here. First, thank you to our incredible team of women. This day would not be possible without them. Of course, you just met Diane Diaz, our lead speaking coach. And I also want to give it up for Amber Hawley, our MC this time and our MC for our last summit. She has done an amazing job already so far today, and I can't wait for the rest of the day. She's going to keep us energized. But also like to thank Salita Roberts-Goodwin, our executive assistant, for all of the logistics and email communications and keeping us focused and sane for the past couple of months. Also, a huge thank you to Anna Marie Francisco, our marketing coordinator, all the social media posts, all the emails that you see going out. Our thanks to her. She's been handling a lot of my Instagram stories, and she has done a fantastic job on that. Kelly Lamano is our project manager for the summit. She has kept all the gears turning in Asana and Slack, making sure that everything got done when it needed to get done. So huge shout out to Kelly. Sarah Neal is our graphic designer. She's responsible for these fantastic graphics that you see. She is really an expert in her craft. And I thank you so much for making our summit graphics look brave and bold. And then Kayla Whitaker, she's our stage manager today at the summit, and she does special projects as well for us at Speaking Your Brand. So thank you so much to our team. And then I also want to thank, of course, everyone that you're going to see on screen today, our co-host Diane, our MC Amber, our panelists, our 12 women speakers, our speaking coaches who have been working with our speakers so closely for the past almost 8 weeks, and the panelists that you'll hear from today. And I want to tell you a little bit about the speaker preparation process. Back in January, we put out a call for applications for speakers to submit. And this was open to anyone. They didn't have to be Speaking Your Brand clients. Some of them have never even heard of Speaking Your Brand, but have been recommended by a past speaker or recommended by someone who knew us. So everyone submitted their applications. Our speaker selection committee reviewed them all. It was very competitive. We had so many great applications, so many powerful women who had powerful stories to tell. We managed to narrow it down to 9 speakers who you'll hear from today. And I am so grateful with the diversity that we received with our applications and the diversity that we're able to share with you today. Diversity in races, ethnicities, backgrounds, topics, as well as ages. We have a 19-year-old college student all the way from women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I am so proud of that because really our mission here at Speaking Your Brand is to amplify and champion diverse women's voices. And that's why we're here today. And this is why we put on the Brave Bold Beyond Live Virtual Summit and make it free for you to attend. Our summit speaking coaches have done an incredible job helping to prepare our speakers, helping them craft their talks, which you're going to hear today. Our speakers have been working on their 10-minute TED-style talk. So it's their personal story that leads into their bigger idea, their bigger message. It's not easy to get a message down into 10 minutes, but they have done so, and you're going to hear those today. And then we also have a panel coming up on building your thought leadership platform with some of our graduates from our Thought Leader Academy. And then I also want to make sure to thank our volunteers. These are Speaking Your Brand clients who have been generous enough to donate their time today to volunteer. You're going to see them in the chat. You'll also see them in our breakout sessions moderating. These breakout sessions are new. We didn't have a chance to do them last time. This time, you have a chance to come on video and audio as well as in the chat to talk with our speakers and our speaking coaches. You get to ask them questions about their topic, about their process of writing their speech, anything that you like to talk about. You're going to be able to do that in the breakout sessions that will happen at the end of each theme. And we have 4 themes running through today. And so you're going to hear about those as we go on. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about Speaking Your Brand and what it is that we do and why this is so meaningful to me, along with what Diane mentioned. Here at Speaking Your Brand, our mission is to empower women to tell the stories that need to be told, whether it's their personal stories, business stories, stories about their community, whether it's stories from when they were 5 years old, 15 years old, 25 years old, 45 years old, 65 years old. All of those stories matter. We are feminists who understand intersectionality. We believe that Black Lives Matter. We support Asian Americans against hate. We support the LGBTQ community. We are here because we believe in democracy and we believe in equal rights for all. And when we share women's stories, this helps to also create our humanity and our connection with each other. When Diane told me that she was reading the book, and we chatted a little bit about this last week. And she mentioned the title again to me, which is The Truth Will Set You Free, but first it will piss you off. And of course, I love that because one of the questions we ask our clients when they're thinking about their thought leadership message is, what pisses you off? What ticks you off? What gets you fired up? So I would love for you to answer in the chat right now. What ticks you off? What's something that you get on your soapbox about and you're just ready to rant and rave about it because you know things could be better? Things can be different. Things can be better for more people. Well, I'll tell you something that pissed me off. And this happened election night 2020. So just a few months ago. And of course, I've been pissed off really since 2016, but it came to a head on election night 2020. I was actually standing right here in this exact same setup. I was doing political analysis on TV, which I've done for the past 15 years. Usually I go into the news studio. This time, because of COVID, I was here with my comfy pants and my comfy shoes doing it via Skype. And I was on a panel like I've done many, many, many times before. And we had done a few segments already, and the election results were coming in, but no decisions had been made yet. It was still relatively early in the evening. So this panel had been coming on for a few times, and we were back on the air. And my Republican counterpart, on the Democratic side, my Republican counterpart started going on and on about how the election was being stolen, and there was widespread voter fraud. And he was really using very angry and divisive rhetoric. And this was unusual. I never had encountered this on a TV news segment and political analysis that I had been doing for so long. And so he was going on and on. And usually when we are on panels, we know about how much time we should take. And then we round robin to each person because we're respectful of the time. But he was not. He was just going on and no one was stopping him. The anchor in the newsroom wasn't stopping him. And I'm on screen looking at this. And the thoughts go through my mind of someone has to stop this. This is not appropriate for television and what we're supposed to be doing here. So and part of me was like, well, it's up to them. It's up to the new studio to handle this. It's their program. And then I thought for another couple of seconds and I said, no, it's actually up to me. So I said, it's exactly what I did. Excuse me, I'm going to have to interrupt here. This is exactly the divisive, angry rhetoric that has gotten our country to where it is today. We are here to do election analysis, not to spout conspiracy theories. And then I said a few more things and tried to get us back on track. And I heard from women after that who found me on Facebook, who looked me up on Twitter and thanked me for interrupting, thanked me for making sure that my voice was heard. And this is the reason why I still do political analysis after all these years, because I want a woman's voice on television talking about politics. Well, let me contrast this with election night 2016, 4 years earlier. Came into the new studio in the afternoon, optimistic, slightly guarded optimism that we were about to elect our first woman president, Hillary Clinton. But of course, as the hours went on and the election results came in, it was not looking good. So by 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m., we were wrapping up in the studio and we were getting ready to tape a segment that was going to air the next day. So I was sitting there at the table with the reporter and he asked me a question and my mind just went blank. For the first time, and having done hundreds of these, I lost my voice. I didn't know what to say. I was in a state of shock, just like so many of us, many women, were the night of that election in 2016. So I felt like eternity. It was probably just a few seconds. So I said, can we redo that? Luckily, it was a tape segment, not live. So we did it again. Went home, kind of slept, kind of didn't. Woke up at 6 a.m. to do another segment for CTV, Canada's largest news network. So I sat there, kind of smiled, and reassured the watching public that everything was going to be okay. You see, I thought it was my role to reassure, to comfort, to do that emotional labor for everyone. Even though inside, I knew that this was an utter disaster, that who had gotten elected president, and that it was dangerous going forward. And so but I didn't have quite the same voice that I had in 2020. So what was the reason for that shift between 2016 and 2020? Yes, it was the political climate. But you know what else it was? You, all of you. Our Speaking Your Brand clients, our summit speakers from last time, podcast listeners who reach out to me, those of you who respond to the weekly email newsletters, your bravery, your courage, your vulnerability gave me that voice back that I knew was in there, but that had been subsumed for those years. And I think that the reason why it had been, especially in 2016, was not just because of the political campaign. It was because a lot of the women's organizations that I belonged to did what I would call pink-washed feminism. It was women's empowerment, but it was a women's empowerment around conformity, making sure that we were still the comforters and the reassurers. Yes, we could be strong and we could be powerful, but we still had a certain gendered role to play. But now, after those 4 years, seeing all of you has given me my voice back. And that is why vulnerability and courage is so powerful, because it is contagious. As Diane mentioned, throughout history, most of the stories have been written by men and for men. My master's degree is in history. I've studied lots of history. And I remember as a little girl, I was an avid reader. I would read anything you gave me, whether it was a book, a magazine, or even the TV guide. I would sit there and read it. And I would always be looking for the girls and the women in the stories. Of course, I found Nancy Drew, devoured all of her novels, and then was kind of just left like, okay, well, what else am I going to read? So I went into history and would find some women in history, but they were few and far between, and they were rather one-dimensional, mostly home and hearth, and they didn't really have the same agency and certainly not the same impact that the men in history did. And so I remember when I was in high school, I learned about feminism. And I thought to myself, well, why would we need feminism? Of course I'm equal. I'm strong and I'm smart and I'm fully capable and I'm fully competent as much as these other high school boys that are around me. So for a moment, I was like, why would we need feminism? Of course, we're all equal. And now I see why we need feminism. Feminism is not about putting women over men. Feminism is about equality, about making sure that we are all seen as humans and as individuals. Really, feminism, according to Carol Gilligan, a professor and author, is a great liberation movement. She calls it a liberation movement to liberate democracy from the patriarchy. And that's why when we see the GOP trying to restrict voting rights in states like Georgia and other states that they're trying to, what they're trying to do in addition to restricting voting rights and democracy is they are trying to make sure that patriarchy and white supremacy reign supreme. And I'm not going to let that happen. And I know you're not going to let that happen either. Why does it matter who tells the stories? Because who tells the stories influences what stories get told and how they are told. And as Shonda Rhimes has said, and I love this quote, it'd be nice to feel like we weren't constantly having every discussion from the perspective of a white male. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that men don't have things to contribute. I've read plenty of books and watched movies and TV shows and learned from plenty of men. But there are so many incredible women out there, including you all in the audience, including our summit speakers and our clients who have so many important things to say, and they need that platform. They need that visibility. They need that representation just as much as the men do. And this is getting better. Women like Shonda Rhimes who are creating these TV shows. We have women who are writing more and more business and marketing and finance books, women who are running for office, women who are in positions of leadership, women who are in positions in their business, women like you who are starting and growing your business. So it is happening, but it's happening slowly. And there is a role that we have that we can do to help make a bigger impact. We can also look at who are we listening to? What are the books we're reading? What are the podcasts we're listening to? Who are the influencers we're following? And making sure that we are selecting women's voices. We did a challenge last year, and we just did the podcast episode a couple weeks ago called Choosing Women's Voices. Because I had found that so many of the books that I was reading and podcasts I was listening to were by men because those were the default. They're the top ranked, they're the best sellers, they're the ones everyone is talking about. So of course they seem most in reach. But I believe it's time to detox from the default. We need to challenge the status quo. We need to seek out and amplify women's voices because that's what's going to change this feedback loop that keeps putting the same men in positions of popularity and authority. And by choosing and being intentional with our choices and choosing women's voices, we can start to change this. And this is why what we do here at Speaking Your Brand is so incredibly meaningful to us. And I know to Diane, to our team, and to everyone who's been a part of it. So what exactly keeps us silent? Diane mentioned this in her talk. Imposter syndrome, perfectionism, people-pleasing, that role of comforter and pleaser that I played on election night 2016. There's also shame. There's vulnerability hangovers. There's even harassment that comes from external sources, as well as the internal silencing that we do. What is the reason for all of this? The patriarchy. The patriarchy wants to keep us silent because they know when we speak up and talk about these important issues, that's when things are going to start to change. And I know that's why we are all here today. Here are 3 things that you can start doing so that we can speak up and that we can find our voices as powerful women. The first thing to do is to use your voice. Using your voice shapes your identity. It reinforces your identity. It strengthens your identity. There was an article in Vanity Fair last summer about the actress Viola Davis. And in the article, the reporter wrote, "Not speaking out is unthinkable for Davis. Her voice is her identity, her emancipation." We create a stronger sense of self when we use our voice. We understand ourselves better. And then by extension, those who hear our voice see our humanity. They see our individuality. They see our agency and our power. So number 1, using your voice strengthens your identity. Number 2, the second reason to use your voice is that it brings to light those issues that we care about that otherwise don't get addressed. issues like parental leave and childcare, issues like all of the millions of women who've lost their jobs during the COVID pandemic because they've had to take care of their children and homeschool them. And so what is going to happen to their careers? What is going to happen to their households and their families and their incomes? And we see some women in Congress talking about it, but if it wasn't for those women who were in Congress, these issues may not get addressed. We see things like Black Lives Matter, which was started by 3 women. We see the Me Too movement, which was originally started about 15 years ago by a Black woman and then picked up in 2017 by more and more people. These issues get discussed and get dealt with when women bring them up. And the third thing that you can do, or the third reason why, and it's so important to use our voices, is because when we do so, we create a community. We know that we're not alone. It validates our experiences. And this is what happens in our summit. This is what happened in our last summit. And I know this is what's going to happen today. You're going to hear their speakers share their stories, and you're going to realize you're not alone. And by extension, they're going to realize they're not alone because you are here witnessing them tell their story. I recently watched the new Netflix TV series called Firefly Lane. Anyone watch Firefly Lane? It's 10 episodes. I'm hoping they have a season 2. It's by an author named Krista Hanna. She's the one who originally wrote the book. And it's about these 2 women as they grow up from high school into their 20s and into their 40s. And unfortunately, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. So if you haven't seen it, just pretend that you didn't hear this. Towards the end of the season, one of the main characters suffers a miscarriage. She goes back on her TV show about 2 days later, and her TV show is kind of a cross between Oprah and Ellen. And she's there about to do a sponsor giveaway, and there's women in the audience there. So she starts doing the giveaway, and then she stops. And she realizes she can't go on pretending anymore that everything is okay, because it's not okay. She had just suffered a miscarriage. So she turns to her studio audience and says, have any of you ever had a miscarriage? And at first, the women are kind of looking around. And then one woman raises her hand. And then the star, the TV host, says, well, this is what happened to me. And all of a sudden, the dam breaks. More and more women in the audience raise their hand. They're given the microphone. They start sharing their stories. And they realize they're not alone. We don't talk about these issues because men have not wanted to talk about these issues. But as women, we need to talk about these issues. This is to the core of who we are. And this is why it's so important for us to use our voices and share our stories. Whether it's about a personal story, a business story, or a story in your community, it all matters. And this is what our summit speakers are doing today by sharing their with vulnerability and courage. And this is what the women in our Thought Leader Academy did during the 4 months that they worked together. They started in November and they just graduated in early March. And I am so proud of them. They have launched podcasts. They've delivered a talk on a TEDx stage. They have been on numerous podcasts as guests. They have gotten speaking opportunities, high-profile speaking opportunities that they didn't think they otherwise would. They've gotten paid speaking engagements, including some of them who've gotten their first paid speaking engagement. I am so proud of everything that they've accomplished. And just as important as these tangible results that they received from going through the academy is the voice that they strengthened, that clarity and the confidence that they got within themselves. And that came not just from the one-on-one coaching that we did with them, that came from being in community with each other, from being vulnerable and sharing their stories first in our small group, and then building up the courage to share it with more people. Our Thought Leader Academy is open for enrollment again today, starting April 1st. We start April 20th with our first group call. You are more than welcome to join us if you feel like this is the place where you want to be. If my message resonates with you, if what you hear today and what you see today is something that you would like to get more involved in, if you know that you want to make a bigger impact, you have a bigger message to share, one that aligns with what you do in your business and with your career, but also is something more. It's a movement. This is why what we do here at Speaking Your Brand is so special to me, because it's not just a business, it's a movement. And that's what our Thought Leader Academy helps you to do. In month 1, you work on your thought leadership message and project. In month 2, you work on your signature talk, which is for brand awareness and lead generation, as well as a TED style talks talks, similar to the ones that you'll hear today. In month 3, you work on your visibility and revenue plan. And then in month 4, you work on your delivery, so delivery on camera and delivery in person, as well as your confidence and mindset. There are special bonuses if you join early, and the program is limited to 16 women. We keep it small because we like it to be intimate. There are different tiers that you can join at. There's the Academy only. There's Academy plus one-on-one coaching with one of our coaches, including Diane, as well as Marie Feedback, who you'll see later today. And then there's also a tier with the Academy plus one-on-one coaching with me. There's only 2 spots for the one-on-one coaching with me. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely go check out the details now. Again, that's speakingyourbrand.com/academy to get all of the details and to enroll today. I like to close with an excerpt from Amanda Gorman's inauguration poem, The Hill We Climb. As you can tell, Diane and I love to read books. Here are some of my favorite parts. We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. And that's what I did this past election night, 2020. I found my voice again. I found my authentic voice again. I was brave enough to see it. I was brave enough to be it. Are you ready to join me? Thank you.